Yeah, so my name is Ilya, and I am the product manager for API.AI. I'm an ex-CEO of API.AI, and we were acquired by Google last week. Yeah, thank you. So let's talk about the bots that really understand people. And at API.AI, we actually, talking mostly about conversational interfaces, not bots. And the reason is because we do not really believe in, this war between apps and bots. We just think that, all the apps, all the services may benefit from having conversational experiences added to those. So, and that's why, we are mainly just talking about adding conversational experiences to all the services. So why bots are so popular, why we are here, why everyone are building bots. So first one is obvious. So it is reach. Well, there is a huge audience. Messengers are growing fast. So it is really, it's an obvious channel as it was with apps 10 years ago for promoting your services, for reaching large audience. And then there are integrations. So bots being mainly text-based agents allow broader, more natural integrations between each other, integrations to different platforms and so on. So these two points are making bot development meaningful. Actually, majority of bots are developed for these two main reasons, I would say. So the more interesting thing is natural language user experience, and in general, more natural interface than buttons or menus and so on. So do all the bots need it? No. So obviously there are bots that can just benefit from some command line commands or even some basically or even some non-natural language requests. But what is interesting about this whole growth of bots and conversational interfaces is that now adding natural language interfaces to apps really allow to solve a number of pretty different and interesting issues. So one is onboarding and understanding people. So instead of building an interface and hoping that users will get it and that they will spend enough time to understand how to work with it, you just give them this agent and tell, ask whatever you want. If you build your bot properly, it will understand it. If not, it's also good because you understand what users are asking about, and you know what to focus on. So then what is important is context awareness and what makes bots different from apps. So you may use the information not just about the user but about the current conversation with the user in order to better understand what user wants to do and in order to get to the expected results faster. So to give you an example, if you are traveling somewhere, so you can ask what will be the weather in Santa Cruz. It replies to you and then you tell, okay, book me a ticket there. So you do not have to clarify the location again. And then you tell, oh, and by the way, buy flowers for my wife. So it understands the location, it understands where will you be there, where you will be tomorrow and so on. So this is not something that could be achieved with regular standalone apps. So this is something new that is pretty important. And third is, bots may have personality. And that really make users more loyal, that it can increase engagement levels, retention levels, and so on. And this is, again, something pretty different from regular apps or services. So other than that, again, we do not think that bots have to replace apps. And like all the business logic, and what is more important probably is that, well, we do not think that bot makers will replace like good old services. So if you think of, well, travel industry or, well, any other like any other industry really. So I believe, well, what they need to do is just to add these interfaces, but not that, well, there will be some, well, completely new companies that will win just because of that. Because, well, you still have to implement the business logic, you still have to understand your clients, and this is pretty important. So these last three things, I guess, are, well, the most important for longer term. So when all this like hype around bots will slow down a little bit, there will be companies that are really focusing on user experience, and well, understanding users is something pretty important. So with that, I will just show some, well, a demo of the tool and how you can build smart bots. So this is API.AI developer console. Let me make it a little bigger. So I'll create an agent called TalkAbout1. Internet is not really good here, so I had to create another one during lunch and just create lots of screenshots to show in case if internet doesn't work. But, well, we'll see. Probably it will not be required. Yeah, okay. So the main concept here is creating intents. So intents are types of, well, user intentions. So what user may want from your system. So let's say we are making a bot that would control some audio system. So I can provide some examples. So my users can say, like, play the Beatles. Or I'd like to listen to Madonna. So we'll call this intent play. Well, developer provides some examples. And as a result, well, we will return play action together with the resolved parameters. Like, well, in this case, it recognized that Madonna and the Beatles are most likely the artist. So I save it, and now I can test it. So if I say something like, let's try. Could you please play Lady Gaga? Oh, my mic doesn't work, so. So it recognizes that the intent is play, artist is Lady Gaga. Let's try with something more complex. So let's say I want to hear Bob Dylan. So again, the system understands that it's a play intent and the artist is Bob Dylan. But you can notice that, well, the example that I provided here doesn't look like, well, the request I provided doesn't look like the examples I built before. So this is something pretty important, and, well, this is what we find extremely helpful for our developers. So you do not rely on keywords, you do not rely on some like basic like keyword spotting. You do not make users memorize commands. And this is pretty valuable. So next step would be, so now our bot understands single user intents. So then you want to support, well, some kind of conversation. So you can do it by providing contexts. So let's say I'll do music, I'll add music playback as a context. And I'll create a new intent that will work in the music playback context, or it will take it into account. And if user says, like, say, next, in this context, then we will return play action, and the order will be next. So I save it, and let's try it. So let me try Lady Gaga thing again. So it sets context. You may have unlimited number of contexts at the same time. So these are kind of topic and discussions that that the bot is, well, that the user has with the bot. so you can switch between different topics. You can get back to a topic. They have their own lifetime, so we are emulating user memory. So if you are, talking about something and if you're not talking about something for a while, it can forget about it, and you will have to remind the bot. So if I say, like, next one, please. Now, in this context, it returns action, play, order is next. So these are two very basic things that allow to create, some kind of conversation graph and intent recognition. But in many cases, if you are building pretty complex advanced solution, you may have a lot of different parameters. You may have pretty difficult business logic. And this is what we are helping with, and this is, pretty unique. So let's say we are building a travel agent, like hotel booking bot. So typically, the way you do it, you would have to, you would have to specify some trigger intent, like if user says, book me a hotel, we will start asking questions like, where are you going? And if user does reply with a location, it's fine. If not, we are kind of lost. We have to think in advance of all the combinations of requests, which may be difficult. So I'll show you how to solve it. So let's say I'll create an entity called hotel. We'll provide some examples, Hyatt, synonyms. And now I will create pretty generic intent for hotel booking. So you can just say, book a hotel, or I'd like to stay at Hyatt in New York, or something like 3 of us are going to Tokyo tomorrow. So what is happening? We do the named entity recognition, understand that 3 is a number, Tokyo is a city, tomorrow is a date, Hyatt is a hotel. So these are all the parameters that we resolved. So let's say, we will return action booking, intent, let's name it book a hotel. And now what we can do is we can check which parameters are required in order to fulfill the request. So if it is Expedia or Booking.com or someone else who is building this agent, they would need all these parameters in order to fulfill user requests. So let's say they are all required. We can reorder them, saying like city is the most important thing, then probably date, then number of people. And we can create some custom prompts. So let's say we will ask, where are you, where are you going? Or just like, where to? So let's save it and test. Oh, and at the end we will tell something like, okay, booking hotel for you. So I can start with something generic now. So I can say, again, like, book a hotel, please. And my internet is slow. Let's try again. Okay, seems like internet is down, so let's switch to the static version. Oh, okay, it's back. So what happens is it recognizes that there are no parameters set in my first request, and it asks me this question, where to. So I can, well, reply one by one, and, well, that would be obvious. But typically, you cannot expect it from the users. So users can combine different parameters. They can, well, reply in different orders. So I can say something like, well, party of 5, and my mom likes Marriott. So what happens is it figures out that the hotel is Marriott, number of people is 5, and it keeps asking where to because it is a required parameter. So we can reply with something like having vacations in Las Vegas. So it sets Las Vegas as a city. Probably I changed my mind, so let's say never mind going to Los Angeles. It replaces, Los Angeles, sorry. Yeah, it replaces Las Vegas with Los Angeles, asks for the date. I'll tell, like, next Friday. It figures out the date, and, well, we are good to go. So in like 3 minutes, we've built a bot that is pretty advanced to have, well, complex conversations with the user, do the clarifications, and so on. So obviously, next step for the developer would be to connect it to some business logic. So we've got fulfillment capabilities so that you can, well, enable a webhook, and you can basically send this intents and parameters recognized to a specific URL to your own service. So this demo was mainly or only about building this agent from scratch. We help to simplify work of developers, so you can actually enable things like booking or wisdom or weather and so on. So we will understand all the major requests here. So let me give you an example. So let's do, for example, smart home and small talk. So now if I say, like, turn on the lights in the kitchen, it seems like internet is down again. Yeah, so, but believe me, it will understand what I mean, and then it will also support clarifying requests like and in the garage as well, and things like this. And there is this huge domain called Smalltalk, so that your bot from the beginning will understand all the, like, generic requests about itself, about the company, and so on. You can easily customize those. So when the bot is done, is built, you can integrate it. Okay, so there are logos here, which you cannot see. So you can integrate it to, well, all the popular platforms. And what you can also do is you can easily test it without, well, a need to submit it for approval. So you can just create a custom page for the bot. Let me try to show it here. Yeah, so for example, I've just created this talk about demo page, which can be shared with anyone. You can, well, ask your friends and colleagues to test it out and, well, and see how it replies. What is more interesting here is we also have training. So training serves 2 goals. So one is you can just see all the conversations your bot had where there were some issues or it didn't recognize something, and you can basically mark up things that didn't work. So for example, I tried this example, run Eminem for me. It didn't recognize it's a play intent. Well, I assign an intent for it, and, well, it starts to understand these types of requests immediately. So second way of using it is you can actually upload your logs from, say, call center or support and so on. So instead of creating intents and entities and just, well, thinking about those, you can just mark up the logs you already have with the users and, well, and train the system in this way. So this is how the bot looks now. You can test it out yourself at bot API.AI talk about demo. And that's pretty it. So this is how the system works. So our main focus is on understanding what users are talking about, and understanding the context and customizing it to, each specific user. Yeah, sure.
Let's open it up to questions. First, give Ilya a hand, please. Thank you very much. Anyone have questions?
I know you have a toggle for machine learning, basically turn it on and turn it off. Can you talk about what the effects are for a bot with it on versus off? What changes, or should someone expect?
Yeah, there were two reasons for adding it. So when we added it, and so we started to work on the platform about 2 years ago. 6 years ago, and launched the platform 2 years ago. And when we launched it, we were switching from pattern rule-based approach to machine learning. And so one of the initial reason for adding it was just to tell that, yes, we do have machine learning. You can turn it on, and it's on by default. So now its functionality more technical. So if you turn off machine learning, it will be almost exact match. So, and our users are using it mainly for some kind of system internal intent. So let's say something is happening and you want to send an event. So event user requested this, and you can just create an intent with such input. So we do not want the system to understand it broader. We do not want to make it understand it better. It just we'll get this exact phrase, and if machine learning is off, it will understand it.
Any other questions? Can you pass that down? Thank you.
Yeah, you showed the one-click deploy to all the different platforms, and are you hosting those once you click the deploy on those, or do you have to provide your own hosting?
I cannot hear, sorry.
Are you providing the hosting when you do the one-click deploy for the bot once it's deployed on those platforms?
Providing,
the hosting for them?
Hosting?
The hosting, yeah.
Yeah. So it is a cloud solution. So you create this platform, this agent with our service, and then in the integrations, when you integrate to one, and then you have two options. So you either integrate with one of SDKs. So just use one of SDKs integrated to your app, and it still is processed in our cloud, or you are enabling one of the platform integrations, and these are basically this means that we host this bot for Facebook or for Slack, and it is connected to our cloud service again. So you do not have to host this bot while it is on our side.
Hi, what are some examples of some of your favorite bots that people have built on top of API.AI?
Yeah. So when we started, a couple of years ago, we were not thinking about bots. So we've got quite a lot of applications that are not bots, but will use our conversational experience platform. So things like, smart home control devices, then automotive devices or automotive infotainment systems. Yeah, sure. So for automotive, for example, we are in Jaguar Land Rover cars, so where you can just control the experience. For smart home, we are powering a device called Ivy, which is like an Alexa competitor, for example. Samsung built their Samsung Auto, which is like a prototype IoT device, again, competitor to Alexa with us. There are quite a lot of them. So in terms of chatbots, we've got, as I mentioned, currently more than 70,000 developers, so there are, again, a lot. So for some well-known ones, there is a product called StatsBot in Slack that is a bot for working with Google Analytics in Slack that uses us. I guess API.AI that was presenting before was using us. There are some well-known bots that are powered by us, but built by some other companies like integrators. So for example, there are bots, there is TechCrunch bot and Forbes bot that are built by a company called ChatFuel, but they are using us for natural language understanding. So these are some examples.
My question is about language, like localization. What support do you have for intention and entity extraction in other languages?
Can you repeat? So what is it?
My question's about what support do you have for other languages, non-English, both on the intention classification side and on the entity extraction side?
Yeah, so we support 15 different languages. We have like all the main entity support for all of them. In terms of domain support, so the pre-built domains, well, we have much less for other languages. But what we are finding, and well, this was pretty interesting to realize that majority of developers do not really want to build to use pre-built domains, just because well they work great, but they want custom user experience. So it is okay to use them for well recognizing some single phrases, but then if you want to support a dialogue, you really want your device or your app or your bot to be unique. So that's why they are well mainly building their intents from scratch and probably augment it with our domains like from time to time.
All right, I have time for one last one. Give a hand to Ilya Gelfenbeyn, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was really good.